While the hosts of Sisters in Arms have taken every precaution to ensure that the content of this program is both current and accurate, errors can occur. The hosts assume no responsibility or liability for any errors or omission in the content of this program.
The information contained in this program is provided on an as-is basis with no guarantee of completeness or accuracy. The opinions of the guests are not necessarily the same as the hosts.
Hi, welcome to Sisters in Arms. I'm Kerrie Ann, the State Director for the DC Project of Massachusetts.
And I'm Renee Gagne, the DC Project State Director of Rhode Island, and together we serve as a Second Amendment resource for our communities.
Today's episode is about the DC Project, and we do have a special guest with us. If anybody doesn't know what the DC Project is, the DC Project is a nationwide organization of women that safeguard our Second Amendment. And today we have a DC Project delegate, which is pretty much the same thing as a member, and we're going to talk about that. So thank you, Cynthia Deltano, for coming. Did I say it right?
You did
All
perfectly.
right, awesome. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. And why don't you tell us a little bit about you and how you found the DC Project?
Okay, I am from Mansfield, Massachusetts. I've had my license, a number of years, since I'm probably middle to late 20s. And I found the DC Project on Facebook. I was looking at a Facebook presentation, and someone texted, how do you get your license in Massachusetts? And I was like, no one's answering, so I'll answer it. So I answered it, and then one of the women that were part of DC Project messaged me and asked me if I had heard about the DC Project, and I said,
the previous director, Lakeisha Robbins.
Lakeisha, yeah. And I said no, and she invited me to a meeting. I'm like, sure, I'll go. And so we did a Zoom at the time, a Zoom meeting. And I've been a delegate since.
Yeah, you've been on board with the DC Project before I even took over.
I was.
You one
came
of the
in.
originals.
I think there was like 7 of us in the beginning in the meetings and everything. Now it's nice to see a larger group.
Back
and active memberships is really important. So it's really nice to see that. And you guys have done an incredible job with organizing it and getting people in the membership and all that. So it's been really nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but as a delegate, what do you like? Have you done this before? Like before you
legislative stuff?
Yeah.
Before in my career, I did legislative work for the state at the state level, not in Congress, but at the state level. I did it for a few years.
So you coming on board was kind of a little bit easier for you.
Yeah, I didn't have that learning curve that some people might have, trying to figure out who their legislators are. They're afraid to call. They don't understand that legislators work for you. We don't work for them. And they're responsible to answering to us since we've elected them. And so it was a little bit easier for me, I think, and I knew a little bit more than other people did in terms of how to get information.
Right.
So.
But you know what I love about the DC Project? Just like when we teach the women in the chapter, the Armed Women of America, we have new shooters and we have women that have more experience. So the women with more experience kind of mother the newbies. Same with the DC Project.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people hesitate to sign up because they think they have to be civics majors.
Yeah, and they're afraid. They're a little nervous.
Yeah.
They're a little bit afraid. And I'm
It
like,
is
no,
nerve-wracking.
Or they think
can
there's
be.
an
It
obligation.
seems nerve-wracking,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because
It
it's
can
the whole
be.
fear of the unknown stuff.
Yep,
Like,
and it can
just
be.
parking in Boston, right? Or parking in Rhode Island for
I'm
us.
I mean, not a city girl. I'm like, does it have to
I
be
know
in
all the
Boston?
curves in Boston because I used to have to drive around for
Yeah.
another position I had. I had to drive all over the place, so I'm very
All right,
comfortable
so
driving in Boston.
if we go to the State House, are you going to the State House?
I don't know yet. I don't know
Okay.
if I can make it. My daughter broke her wrist, so we have a doctor's appointment, so I have
Yeah.
to see the timing and everything.
Yeah, we're doing a
so.
field trip to go to the State House, and I'm trying to figure out how somebody can bus us in. Because
This is Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So we have a team in every single state. So we need to be clear on which state house we're visiting.
Oh, yeah, Massachusetts, Boston.
Massachusetts. It's a beautiful state house.
Oh
People
my
should
gosh.
go and just learn about the history
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Massachusetts. It's
It's-
so interesting.
And especially if you go with Jim Wallace.
Yeah.
Oh, he knows
a lot.
everything.
Yeah.
He's
yeah.
like, did you know this picture is the way it is because of this? And I'm like, no.
Am I going to remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
There's some great areas
As
in
a
there.
delegate, what would you say to new shooters and or a new delegate for the DC project, whether for Rhode Island or Massachusetts, and how to get started and what they can do to really be a voice?
I would say sign up first, you know, and kind of encourage them that there's not a lot of, you guys have to do most of the work. We get the notifications and choose to join or not, but when you join, you don't necessarily have to talk.
And it's
you can
free.
Yeah, and it's great, and great T-shirts too.
Great T-shirts. Everybody looks good in teal.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And just to breathe and relax and understand that you don't necessarily have to say anything, which you guys communicate to everybody too, that you can just go and watch and be part of the group, and people will see you and understand that, boy, there are a lot of people who are women who are interested in 2A, are interested in
Right.
keeping their
Yeah.
license, keeping their family safe, whatever the reason
Right.
is that they have decided to get their license, and it's just, you know, a body sometimes is okay.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Just
So-
being there
Just a
and
presence.
supporting
Yeah.
somebody that's next to you that's wanting to speak or
Yep.
something is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are very, very intimidated by it. I know when I first took it over, I'm like, what am I doing? You know, and you volunteer your time, and I'm very fortunate because I had Gun Owners Action League, Jim Wallace, John Green, Mike
They're
Harris.
excellent, yeah.
They helped me so much, and they're still helping me, and I'm still learning, and I'm still, you know, trying to get more comfortable in that role of speaking, because it's funny because we teach classes all the time. I don't have a problem with that. I get up and I speak, and I do this little shaky thing. Renee's trying to calm me down.
Really?
Stop.
I'm shocked because you've
just
done
you-
an excellent
yeah,
job when I've
you
heard
just
you
get out of
speak.
your
Yeah.
comfort zone.
Yeah.
We're
Yep.
used to being leaders for the chapter, and
The
this
roles
is a
changed
whole.
a little
yeah,
bit.
it's changed
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and
I
all
get it.
eyes are on us.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't want to misrepresent. You don't want to say something that's not correct. You want to make sure that your stats are spot
Right.
on.
Right.
And you're also the counter visual to the red shirts. And I hate calling them the red shirts. I think it's disrespectful. But it's the moms demand action.
Mm-hmm.
And they just wear a red shirt. We wear teal, they wear red. And they really, it's funny because don't you think they all want the same thing, but they're coming at it in just
Yeah,
a completely...
they're going at it in a different
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
altogether.
And a lot-
They think gun control
Yeah.
is going to be effective.
Right.
And it's not. If you look at some of the states that have the strictest gun control,
Oh,
they have
hold
the
on.
highest crime rate.
Hold on, look what I have here. Let me pull out my
The
little-
book.
My book. I love this book. This is Massachusetts
Wow.
gun laws. Okay, hold on. Let me flip again.
No doubt
This
I've worked.
is 450 pages, and our crime with guns is up 111%. So this is Massachusetts. So I mean,
I've worked on some
so
of
we're going to
those.
work on more gun
Yeah, I
laws,
bet.
and that's going to do what? Mitigate the
gonna do
crime that
nothing.
it hasn't done
No.
yet. So obviously, that's not the answer.
No, and the problem isn't people like us or whomever you know that has a gun. The problem are the criminals, and
Right.
they're ignoring the fact that the criminals are the ones that are committing the crimes with the guns. They're not necessarily getting them
Right.
legally, and they ignore that
Yeah.
fact. They just don't want us to have a 2A.
No. And
Right.
I think if I remember correctly, at the last listening tour, I looked at the police officer that was there, and I said, how many times have you arrested the same person over and over? And he's shaking his head.
Yep.
I said,
It's
and where are
frustrating for
these?
them. It's
Yeah, and
frustrating for
I
them,
told
too.
him
Sure.
because I'm like, I feel bad for you. You're doing this over and over and over and over and over and over, and they're getting put back in the system, and then they get let back out in the street.
Yeah.
And then, you know, all these illegal guns, where are they coming from? You know, and I didn't expect him to answer that question, but ultimately, we're talking about criminals that don't follow the rules, right?
Right.
They don't care about any of this.
Right.
We do. And if you restrict it more and more, they're still going to get
They're
the
gonna have-
firearms
yeah.
out of the back of someone's trunk
So
in the black market.
Right, so in
Exactly.
Massachusetts, we're on this listening tour. We're going around to different parts of Massachusetts talking about firearms and whatever the topic is. We were in Brockton last week for gang violence. Was that what it was? Gang violence and
No,
firearms,
I
or
think
community
some community-
Yeah,
issues
the
in the
community,
community,
yeah,
which for
yeah.
Brockton is gang
Yeah,
violence.
it's actually
So, you know, as a group of women, we had
impacted communities is what it was.
we had a couple dozen women with us for the DC project, and you know, you're sitting there and you're listening to the panel talk about all the crime, and you have the Moms Demand Action, you know, complaining about the illegal stuff, and we're like, hey, we're representing responsible
Legal.
gun ownership,
Yeah.
which is most of Massachusetts,
Yep.
most of Rhode Island.
Yep.
You can't lump us in with criminals.
No.
No, but they do
They do.
because
They
they
do.
have a misnomer of what shooting is about,
Right.
why people have a
Right.
gun.
Right.
They think we don't need it, but we do.
Right.
We need it to protect ourselves because
Right.
the police aren't always going to be there.
Right.
Right.
You know, and for a number of different, and it's fun.
I'm pretty sure
It's
I
fun.
said I carry a gun because I can't fit a police officer in my pocket. I think
you
I
said
That's an
something like
excellent
that.
point, yeah.
Pretty sure I said that.
Yeah,
They're
you
too
did.
heavy to carry or
Last-
something
yeah.
like that. But it's
Yeah.
true. The
Yeah.
response time, they can't be everywhere all
No.
the time.
No.
So that's one big part of the DC project is we like to educate. We don't stand up and recite the Constitution or even reference it because we already know that it's our civil right.
Right.
So we have talking points that kind of go around that because we're not going to talk about what we already know. We're going to talk about things that there are a lot of people in the room that may not know
Right.
some of these talking
Yep.
points. And I love that about the DC project because they're constantly feeding us information, the latest and greatest stats, educational programs that offer effective solutions, like Hold My Gun, if you're having a mental illness or any type of crisis.
Issue, yeah.
You know, Hold My
Yeah.
Gun's awesome, Walk the Talk America. These are effective solutions, national nonprofit organizations that are going to offer help. Gun control in a book isn't going to offer that.
Nope.
No.
No.
So that's what I love about the DC
Yeah.
project.
And I think the Moms Demand Action really do come from emotional standpoint too,
Yeah.
because they have personal, tragic, horrible stories, and what they don't realize is that these personal, tragic stories these crimes are being committed in soft targets. So meaning gun-free zones, schools. It's just, we've been talking about this for years and years and years. What is the solution? How are we how are we going to make our kids safer in schools? They think taking the guns away are going to make the bad guys stop what they want to do, or stop a kiddo from having a breaking point. When
Right.
it really comes down to mental illness, if you see something, say something. Stop with the soft targets. Protect our children like you protect the
Yep.
politicians. And we're going to definitely have I can't wait to have an awesome episode on that, gun-free
Yeah.
zones, because it's a big problem.
Yeah, it is. But also, people, and we have to mention that in the DC project, you have people that have been personally hurt by gun issues, criminals and
Right.
everything, and they've understood and they've opted to join DC and not the other group because they know it's not guns that's a problem, it's the
Correct.
person behind the gun.
Right.
You can have cars, you can have whatever,
Right.
but it's not the gun,
Right.
it's the person.
Right.
You know, and all crimes are done by people with illegal guns at
Most
some
of the time,
level.
yep.
You know,
Right.
yeah, there
Yep.
might be
Right,
1%.
lawful gun owners aren't committing
Yeah,
crimes.
yeah, no one, yeah,
Right.
yeah, and it's maybe 1%, 2%, I don't know.
And the
but-
people that do commit crimes, that they're having a breaking point, and that goes back to the mental health component of it too.
It goes
because-
back to the opioid crisis. It goes back to the mental health crisis. It goes back to
But they don't want to deal with that.
No,
so
our
they're blaming the
judiciary
guns.
system who constantly slaps these people on the wrist and they're out on the street to commit the same crime again and again and again. Rap sheets shouldn't be 10, 15 pages long.
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree, but I mean, I think it's the whole encompassing
Right.
group with that, because the prisons, people think people are going to go into prison and get rehabbed, and
Right.
that doesn't. These people have had problems before they went
Yeah,
into
'cause
prison.
you've
so
seen it personally.
doesn't-
You're on that end.
Yeah,
You were
I
on
mean,
that end.
sometimes if someone leaves the prison and knows that they have to take a shower on a daily basis,
Right, they'll be right back.
they'll be back,
Yeah.
but they're a little bit better than they were because now they know that they have
Right.
to take a shower. So it's all big encompassing thing that we have to look at, and that's one thing that DC Project does, saying, don't look at the gun. We get that people have issues with it, but you can't legislate it away. You have
Right.
to
Right.
educate people on how to
Right.
handle it. Once we've decided to purchase guns, the first thing I did was, we're not buying anything until my 10-year-old learns the rules
Right.
and the regulations and how to use a gun and everything. So my kid's been shooting since she's been 10.
Right.
And
Education is the key
yeah.
to safety.
Are they on
It's
the
so
junior
important.
team?
No, she's not. She's like 20. She's gonna be 26 the end of the
Oh,
month
my.
now.
But
so.
was she ever on the junior?
She was-
What a great program
Yeah,
that
she
is.
was. Her and another child started the program, and then it kind of stopped for a little while, and then some new people picked it up.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was a great program. I was involved in that as well in the beginning. But it was fun. And a lot of times you'd see the parents there, they're terrified, and the kids, they went because the kids wanted to go, and the kids are having a ball, and all the trainers would be like, we'll show you after the kids' program finished, come try it and see. And a lot of the mothers did, and they actually enjoyed it.
And they probably loved it and wanted to come
back.
back.
A couple of them got their license and joined the club, and it was great because they were uneducated, so they had no clue what to expect or anything. And once they started learning, like with their kids, they were like, oh my gosh, this isn't bad.
Well, that's what you just said is exactly it. Without the knowledge, you have fear of the unknown.
Yep.
And we see that with the Moms Demand Action. They'll stand up and testify that they don't know anything about guns. They don't know anything about laws. Yet they're sitting there and they're pushing for safe gun storage. We already have that.
Yeah.
We already have that.
Right.
So they don't even know what they're pushing for.
They're
just desperate for a solution, but
Growing
what
up with fear.
they're fighting for isn't effective.
Right.
No.
And sometimes when they do the research, they're not getting the appropriate education. They're getting information based on whatever
the narrative is that the person is pumping out.
You know, as opposed to not actually looking at the laws and talking to somebody to say, is this a law already? Because it's crazy the amount of laws that we have on that.
So for those that probably don't know what keep talking about the listening tour, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't even understand what that is. So the listening tour was basically organized after the U.S. Supreme Court, the Bruin decision was held. And after that, the speaker, Ronald, and I can never say his last name, Mariano, he tasked Representative Michael Day to do these listening tours, basically to do a comprehensive review on the Massachusetts gun laws. So that's how these listening tours were kind of born. But as much of a pain in the butt it's been, because it's been a lot of work. I mean, the one we did in Brockton was 2.5 hours. We traveled, right? Yeah. 2.5 hours. And then the last one was an hour. And then this one tonight is an hour and a half. Unfortunately, we're not being able to attend that one. But the point being is that there's many more to come. We have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more listening tours.
By the time this show gets out, it'll be over.
Yeah, yeah. The last one's on June 6th. So there are more, and if you are wanting to learn more about the listening tours and you're listening to this,
it'll be over by the time.
It would be over. But if you want to know more about it and what happened, definitely reach out to us. But don't you think that these listening tours actually did us a service?
Yeah.
Because it got our name out there. Because all of a sudden they're like, who are these women in teal?
They're used to seeing all the red shirts opposing, and there were no women for it. Right. So now all these women come in teal, and they're like, hey, wait a minute. It's like, we're the opposition. Here we are.
Yeah. And there's a group out there that supports gun licensing.
Right.
And everything.
And you don't have to be a mom, and you don't have to be a gun owner.
Nope.
No. You could just want to support a civil right.
Your civil right.
My neighbor doesn't have a gun, and
civil right being taken away, the rest are going to crumble. And we're trying to protect the future of our kids, and I don't think people really truly understand that. They're looking at it going, it's the Second Amendment. Well, it's not just the Second Amendment. It's our civil right.
It's a right. Yeah, it's a right. It's our right to own guns. Technically, we don't even need a license if you look at the Constitution. But with the DC project, I find that it's just awesome because all these talks would have occurred, and no one would have been there if it wasn't for you guys, and if it wasn't for the DC project, because you guys got the information, you coordinated everybody to go, and people started attending. And the women that are going are enjoying the meetings. They're great meetings. It was very interesting, and it's good to listen to the other side, because then you'll know, oh geez, that's not correct. We need to, someone needs to go up there and talk and say, and that's what happened.
And that's what we do.
Yeah, and say, no, that's not correct. This is the law, and this is what we do.
Right.
So because they don't have
it's
the
all
correct
about
information.
Education.
Yeah, it is. It's all about
So you
education.
kind of know what's going on in Massachusetts. What's going on in Rhode Island?
Yeah, so I mean, let's take it way back, one step backwards here. So the DC project was founded in 2015 by Diana Muller, who had a couple decades in law enforcement, and she was a competitive shooter. She was going around to her legislators and realizing that they were making serious decisions with gun bills that weren't effective, weren't helpful to the law-abiding citizens. They were actually harmful, and So she decided to get some women together, and she started in her own state and branched it out, and before you know it, we're national, and there's a group in every single state.
Yeah.
So that's pretty
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah.
She's Rhode Island.
Diana Muller is something.
Yeah.
And I can't talk about her enough. And so that's how we started. That's how we branched out nationally. So in Rhode Island, we have a couple pictures. We were supposed to have Sherry Ockery here. She is a delegate for Rhode Island, but she lost her voice 3 days ago.
Oh.
And she has a lot to say, and I love her.
That's probably why she lost her voice.
But she doesn't have a voice, so that's not very effective.
No.
But we'll get her back on because she has some really good things to say. So we're going to put some pictures up. Sorry, I'm looking around. I don't know where I'm looking today.
Yeah, so
I'm
you
gonna put some
have
pictures
a
up.
couple.
So here
of,
we have the Rhode Island State House, and this was during the House committee meetings. There were about, 18 bills or so that were trying to get passed. Some were okay, but a lot were just not okay. We don't have enough time to get into those bills, but we had a lot of people there advocating. So Rhode Island is different than any other state that I'm familiar with as far as the yellow. The yellow shirts is what they're called. They're all pro 2A folks, and they come from different organizations, the Federated, the 2A Coalition. There's just many of them there, and they all wear yellow. That's their state color. And that young lady is Tanya Pereira. She is the owner of Surplus Provisions in Cranston, Rhode Island. It's a tactical store. She is awesome. She is quite the rallier, very sweet, educated lady. I can't say enough about Tanya. Do we have a Rhode Island group picture? There it is. So here I am pumping out the DC project and who we are. This was our very first day in the Rhode Island State House. Everyone was so incredibly welcoming. I can't get over that first visit to the State House. It really did warm my heart to see so many people willing to say, who are you? What are you about? And they were very welcoming, and we had some ladies grab some shirts and sign up, and it was awesome. So I think the ripple effect is a big deal.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Slow going, but it's steady because we're all about education, and that is the key to firearm safety.
That's it.
When I found out about the DC project, I was like psyched because I'm like, oh my gosh, there are women out here
look
that
at
have
this.
licenses,
Yeah.
and they're
That's
actually
awesome.
organizing because really, we belong to a club, but there wasn't a lot of groups for women, and so it was nice to see that occur.
It's
It was
nice.
awesome.
It's nice because
Yeah.
it can be something as simple as calling your legislators, writing an email. I personally like to meet with them to get that rapport, and it's all about building relationships because then they're going to trust your expertise because we are the experts.
And they get to know you, and they'll trust you even more.
Right.
as they know you.
We do have like 5 minutes, but I wanted to quickly show the picture of the group from Brockton when we did the listening tours. That was actually a listening tour, in Brockton. And that's all our AWA, our Women of America ladies and DC delegates as well, because they joined that night. So, and some of them were already delegates in prior to that. And then we have another picture of the listening tour in Worcester. And we had Goal there as well. Gun Owners Action League was there. John, Charlie Cook, Mike Harris. That was fun. So it just kind of gives you a little idea of these listening tours and who's showing up.
Kim, would you be able to put the DC Project group picture back on with all the women in teal?
The one
This-
from Brockton.
Yeah, this is a fun one because that night, for the last 4 years, over 4 years, Kerrie and I have been leading the Armed Women of America chapter out of Mansfield Fish and Game in Massachusetts. And the second Monday of every month, 6 to 8, we hold a meeting for these ladies. We teach them something, and then we hit the line and learn what we just practice what we just learned. So that night in Brockton, the listening tour fell on the night that we were supposed to have our meeting.
Yep.
And we have never, ever canceled a meeting.
No.
Except for one time where there was some plumbing issues. But other than that,
won't go
we
there.
will never cancel. We will bleed out our eyes before we cancel because education is that important.
Yep.
So the women, we said, we're going to do field trip.
Yep.
We're not canceling the meeting. The meeting will be a field trip.
Yep.
So these ladies, a lot of them were already in the DC project, but some of them had no idea what it even was about because it's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so they showed up and they were like, "This is easy. We're just talking and advocating for what we know is right, and we're educating people, and what they're saying is not right. I'm going to stand up and tell them that is inaccurate information." And it's like, yes, that's what it's all about.
you know what
Two of the women stood up.
I
that,
know.
that
I was
evening.
like,
Yeah,
oh my
I
God,
was
she's
pretty
getting
psyched.
up. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
But that goes into, I know we're running out of time, but I want to pull these pictures up because I got goosebumps thinking about
I know,
this.
me
It's
too.
just- we have, oh my God. Oh my
We're
God.
so corny.
I know. So I have a bunch
guys
of
are cute.
pictures of a bunch of people testifying. So we're gonna bring up Liv testifying, and I'm gonna let you explain what
Okay,
this
so
was about.
Liv is 15 years old. She's part of the Massachusetts DC Project team. She is a student, a 10th grader at a Voc Tech school, and she majors in childcare. So she actually helps the teacher run a daycare, and the public comes and drops their children off, and Olivia's school does active shooter drills. So the lights go off, the kids are in the dark, they're crying, they're scared, they're sobbing, they're choking on food. Like, I mean, the lights go out, whatever they're doing it. So they could be eating, sleeping, on the potty, whatever it is, right? So my daughter stood up and talked about her experience and how she wants to be protected in the school like our politicians are
Yeah.
protected, because we're going around going to these meetings, and most of the time there are armed people at the door to protect all the people in, all the politicians that are up front. And she had a very good point. Like, what is my life? She actually said, is my life not as important as the people in this room?
She did a brilliant job.
And
Yeah.
you should see, like, if you watch the video, you can see the people on the panel look up. Like,
Pay attention.
you're
Took the
just
breath
like,
away.
wow.
Yep.
Because it's the truth, right?
All right, we got 1 minute, but I really want to pull up these other pictures real quick. So we got Renee testifying, and we have Kathy testifying, Amy testifying, and
Wow.
no, those pictures are going to be fine in production. It just looks funny on the screen. So Amy testifying, and Amy, we didn't anticipate her getting
did an
up, and she
excellent
got
job.
up, and we got Donna testifying, and then myself. Cindy, thank you so much
you're
for
welcome.
joining us, because really it just kind of gives a different feel, because we haven't had a delegate on, and kind of talk about how it is to be a delegate and what you can do to help, and how to get over your fears.
I will say that if you go on the website for the DC project, it's a great website. It has so much information. It has videos and has everybody from all the states there,
Nice.
the leaders, and it's an excellent website to learn more about it.
dcproject.info.
That's right.
dcproject.info.
And if you're wanting to reach out to us, if you have any questions at all and you want to find out more about what happened with the listening tours, sistersinarms2022@gmail.com. Until next time, thank you for joining us. Running out of time. Stay safe
and stay vigilant.
vigilant.